This is Balatro. It's a game about making poker hands and keep you on the edge of your seat wondering if you can score just enough points. An indie game solely made as a one-man project by local Tump which skyrocketed to the slot machine it is today. Balatro asks a very interesting question. Can Candy Crush qualify for the Game Awards? Or at the very least, the WHO ECDD repository? But the game's just making poker hands. How engaging can it be? At the very core, the game is very simple. Score enough points to pass the blind and finally beat ante 8 as each ante is compromised of 3 blinds each. Throughout your runs, you can further customize your deck by buying playing cards and tarot cards, so not only are you gambling in battle, but also in making decisions. With jokers, you can decide how your build can reach more tremendous scores throughout the game's antes. It is a very addicting gameplay loop, but first off, why is the game so addicting? This is a picture of the game's UI. Anything off? Well, of course there is. It's a picture. It doesn't have the mesmerizing animations that actually happen in the background. The slight pop of the cards as you click onto them, mixed with the chip sounds you hear as you do literally any other action. I don't think the game would have been this addicting without this dynamic and draggable UI. Hell, while I looked for examples to use for this video, I found myself being mesmerized of the game's visual design, that I just had to finish a run, and do another run, and another run, and another run. But only isn't the game just so dynamic, the individual card designs are crazy too, with references to things like the extinction of banana breeds, the 2000 US elections for some reason, and this! The colors used in mixture with the cutesy art style is just delicious. I particularly love the vagabond card design even if I don't pick it up that much. We can't forget Campfire and Shortcut though, with wonderful background art with a palette that's just so eye-catching. And of course, Brainstorm with its marking and details. The customizable playing card design adds a lot of variety to the game too. If you're bored of seeing this king guy, you can make him an imposter, or a bullet from another roguelike, or the bearded guy who starves. This also helps distinguish the suits from one another, besides the color contrast feature. The concealment of information. Never tell me the odds, as they say, because I desperately actually like to win for once after 3 hours of attempts. Throughout the game, you're provided with jokers, kana cards, and playing cards to further increase your score. However, you don't exactly know what your score is going to be. Here's what a flush would score: 35 chips times 4 mult. But don't forget the value of the playing cards add to the chip value too. Don't forget the jokers we have right now can increase both our chips and mult. Don't forget the card editions that add mult and chip too. Don't forget the joker conditions that multiply mult too. It's a lot, honestly. Sure, we can do that calculation in our head, but where's the fun in that? And do you expect us to really do that? Local Tunk, even with a game compromising of just numbers, tries to put visuals popping out as its trump card. In his own words, I dislike the game language of fantasy and combat that seem to be way overrepresented in video games, since Balatro is ultimately a game for me. I wanted to lean on different verbiage and visuals. And it shows. The game makes basic math of addition and multiplication look like gambling, where deep inside your mind you try to guess what value your score for this hand is going to be. Like, sure, this has little to no effect in gameplay in 99% of cases, but it subtly makes you hope that you score enough to pass the round by presumably hiding this info from you, when you 100% could have just pulled out your calculator and did the math yourself. This is a major part of the game. Besides the shop and discarding cards, this is a major risk you have to take every round, apart from re-rolling again and again and again because you want an extra dollar, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat on whether or not you'll actually make the score on your final hand. Plus, it's really satisfying to see the numbers just go burst into flames when you figure out what overpowered build you should make mid-run, which you totally plan to do, by the way. However, the game has issues teaching players based on what information they show and ones that they don't. One thing that I wish the game concealed are joker effects, at least the first time you see them. The golden joker has a pretty simple effect, plus $4 every round. Sounds really bad until you consider that it pays for itself rather quickly. And it's the passive income thing that's all the rave these days, aren't they? Tarot cards look like they don't help much at all, until you consider that it's kinda just stacks by slowly making your deck good over the game. You'll reach crazy scores even if you haven't completely replaced it. Sooner or later, people are wondering how on earth you have 5 ace of spades. There's many cases where it'll take people multiple runs before they try things that could have helped their run, and I find this to be one of the most unintuitive part of an otherwise really clear-cut game, which it still is, don't get it twisted. Let's take an example from another roguelike, The Binding of Isaac. This one runs into a complete 180 of Balatro's problem. It never tells players what each item does. This was originally done to give the impression to players that they should, just try new things and remember what what each item does, but the problem here is that there's 800 of them. There's also items that just ruin your run if you ever pick them up. Sorry for the Bicycle of Isaac tangent, but it's to set things straight on how roguelikes present your options are vital to how a player approaches it, especially when you know the game is literally just choosing options for 30 minutes. By showing effects of existing jokers that people haven't tried yet, it allows them to dismiss it as bad even if they haven't tried it for once to make it viable, which completely started the whole flush versus two pair/pair debate when both can be viable depending on the seed. When you base your roguelike on choices, it's important to give proper feedback on what works and what doesn't, because it considerably becomes more crucial picking items up from a run when that's the entire game. But here's the problem. When I get a really good card, like let's say the Burning Joker, I won't recognize its ability to be a good card when the seed requires you to use flushes to succeed. This is assuming you're playing high stakes, of course. White stake? Hell, just get every card with scaling with no thought for synergy and it'll work out somehow. And you definitely can't say that I can just pick it up again for another run to try again. But how many encounters with this Joker will it take for you to give it another shot? How many runs will it take to see that Joker again? How long are you going to think that rare Joker is bad? You will definitely figure this one out over time, but you're going to have a wildly incorrect opinion about a Joker and carry that up and propagate really bad takes online. Guys, Balatro's already getting flags for being simple and just a card game. Like, sure, it's a fun surprise when I figured out that a Joker is actually really good, when I thought it was actually a bot of the bin one. But it's a fun that could have been accessible to more people without ruining it for the niche minority, who actually tries to play up to gold stake. And it isn't even that niche, it's 10% of the player base. By maybe concealing card information or any way of encouraging players to try new things, it'll actually make it considerably clear how beautifully balanced the game is. The game is, if not, probably the most balanced game I've ever played. There's bad jokers every now and then, sure, but each joker makes me wonder if it's worth it to take right now in the early game. And it's a hard decision to take a good joker now to throw away one you already have in the late game. Local Tunk made sure you'd have to make a choice. Every joker has gone through some kind of balance change. Sometimes effects are scrapped entirely, sometimes they're tweaked. Jokers have had a lot of work to ensure that they are balanced enough to encourage varied gameplay while still remaining interesting. It's a complete game of chess figuring out how to save your money in the early game. It's a complete rush spending your money desperately in the late game to save your run. An overall really well designed game that balances your choices to the point that anything could be viable at any moment. On top of that, it makes it really satisfying when you actually figure out a build that works, or when that 100 Arcana cards you took finally paid off as they give you enough mold to pass the round. It's just so satisfying mixed with the ning 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 sound effects too. Local Tunk said it best himself. Another thing that I found interesting over the first 2 weeks of release is the discourse around how random the game feels. There is a lot of randomness, possibly too much, but the meta strategy for Balatro is around mitigating risk and having a build that can easily be countered while still being powerful enough to win. However, I can't bring up game balance without the concept of skips. The tutorial presents it as an ability to skip a blind to get an ensured reward. Like it's a viable option that'll at least give you something to work with. Wrong, 99% of the time you're never taking these. You see, most of these rewards are things you can buy from the shop. So let's say you get $12 from this round, but you're offered a Mega Arcane Pack in exchange to skip. What do you know? A Mega Arcane Pack is $7. So this is never worth it. And there's no guarantee you get the cards you want. So it's still a risk regardless. So in most scenarios, it's just never worth the trouble. Plus, even if it's of equal value, you also skip seeing the shop. By doing this, you avoid the chance to gamble on what your possible options are. It's actually really optimal to just not go for the consistent skip and gamble for shop options that could win the run on the spot. It's a wasted opportunity in presenting a choice to a player. Even though I don't think it takes a lot from the game, since there's a ton of choices anyway, it's still something that could have been a legitimate option rather than a noob trap. But how can this game even be hard for beginners who just make poker hands? Wait! You've been watching this video halfway through. You must be enjoying it a lot, am I right? If you are, you can subscribe to check out the rest of this channel after this to, help me out and hear me, as the kids would call it, yap. It's free to check out my other videos and they're as good if not better than this one. That's all, enjoy the rest of the video, see ya! When you base an entire game around scoring points, it kinda just becomes that. There's not much abilities you can give to a player that isn't thing that scores higher. There's not much ways you can increase the game's difficulty other than, bigger number. This is what makes Endless completely not worth it. There's no actual way to catch up to its level of scaling in the late game unless you use this really specific Red Seal Steel Kings build that may or may not only work on the easiest difficulty. But the game does try other ways besides, adding another 0. Boss blinds, complete bane. They appear every third blind and add a restriction. Some of them are pretty good actually. No discards is a pretty good challenge. Discard 2 random cards from your hand isn't that bad. But plans? It completely stops people from making builds that require face cards. Along with the suit ones, which completely stop people from ever using these tarot cards to transform cards. You might say that's for balance and all, and you'd pretty much be correct and valid. But just balance the jokers, because when you do it like this, it forces people to just pray and hope that they don't get this blind while running a face card build. You can't reroll the blind as often as you think you can. Instead of just nerfing face card jokers for having a lot of synergy to one another, they just decide to throw in a few boss blinds to make you play Russian roulette. You basically are left with a ton of possible card synergies that you can't use anymore because of a what if scenario. Like, what if I actually contribute to society if I wasn't just putting my time into video essay? In later stakes, this is made much worse by the addition of these stickers. Eternal stickers work fine. It's jokers you can never get rid of. It's actually really vital when you have things that try to destroy them. Perishable jokers are jokers that quote-unquote expire after 5 blinds. Rentals cost $3 per round to use. I group these two things together because they deter you from picking up really good jokers, and there's rarely moments where you want to pick these up. And no, we won't talk about that one run where it saved you. It happened once, bro, and never again. Plus, it discourages good synergy you can form by limiting the amount of jokers you come across. A good joker for a build? Too bad, it's perishable and it's just there, taunting you forever, wishing you could take it. I don't think I have to bring up why limiting synergies for a roguelike goes pretty much against how they function. Overall, the game often adds difficulty only through boring ways such as making a higher number or stopping you from picking up jokers. Sure, limitation breeds creativity, but you limit the tools a player can use rather than add a meaningful challenge that isn't just made by a Minecraft challenge YouTuber. But even with these limitations, I find the game still addicting. Roguelikes are known for one thing. It's trying again and again and again. For Balatro, it's holding the R button to gamble once again. The ability of roguelikes to just enthrall you into playing another run, and Balatro heightens it by adding luck as a factor that can save a run but almost never be a reason to just end so abruptly. In this game, luck is something you have to play around with and attempt to beat, like a sort of wind that brings your ship as you steer it into the sea of uncertainty. This game wouldn't have as much of a following if it didn't spark up this much discourse about risk assessment when to actually go all in and gamble in the shop. Every time you go in, there's just a part of you that hopes for the jackpot joker that'll just win your game right there. And it's the meta. You always want to go to the shop and make this risk that can hopefully pan out in the late game. It won't always be in your favor, but when it does, oh boy! And those moments where your luck aren't as good, God, it's like going in with the worst possible hand and just getting the dub. The W. The winner chicken dinner. The victory royale. You don't know how it is to just make it slightly to the score needed to pass, but boom, you make it and you're going to the finals. Bad jokers? No problem, just shape your deck. No good arcane cards? Screw it, we're just buying standard packs now. That's the thing, you can just survive with the least tools possible if you can just somehow figure out what the right items are to buy. And it's a satisfying and exhilarating puzzle just with the addition of luck. Now, the game does get boring. I mean, the game is poker again and again and again. You're bound to. But I can't say that I'm close to reaching that point at all. Even if I'm doing 10 runs per hour just to beat Gold Stake. Which, Jesus Christ, finally I did. Even with the flaws that the game has, I 100% think the game is something you should check out. It tries interesting ideas and executes them just so well. I hope anything I say never dissuades anyone from actually trying this game out, because you just should. Also, massive thanks to my friend who bought me this game for Christmas. You know who you are, and massive thanks, bro. That's all. Thank you. Bye, guys.